The night was cold and heavy with rain, the kind that soaked through clothes and broke spirits. The sound of thunder rolled across the lonely highway, and a woman, 8 months pregnant, walked with trembling steps, clutching her belly as if protecting the fragile life within her from the storm outside. Her name was Sarah, and she had run out of options. Her car had stopped miles back, the tank empty, her phone dead. Every drop of rain felt like a reminder of how alone she was. Ahead, a faint light flickered, a glowing sign that read, "Steel Riders Bar." Her heart hesitated. She'd heard stories about biker bars, about the men who spent their nights drinking, fighting, and roaring down highways with thunder in their engines. But that night, fear of the unknown was smaller than the fear of collapsing in the dark. Pushing the door open, Sarah stepped inside. The music was loud, laughter rough and raw. The smell of beer and leather filled the air. Heads turned as soon as she entered. She stood there, soaked to the bone, hair plastered to her face, eyes wide with desperation. The room fell silent. "Please," she whispered, voice barely audible over the echo of her heartbeat. "I need help." For a long moment, no one moved. The men at the tables exchanged glances, half confused, half cautious. A woman like her didn't belong there. Not in that world of steel, ink, and scars. Then, from the corner, a tall man rose. He was broad-shouldered, his beard streaked with gray, arms covered in tattoos. His name was Mike, leader of the Steel Riders. People feared him, his name carried weight across towns. But as he looked at Sarah, something in his hardened expression softened. He walked slowly toward her, his boots echoing against the wooden floor. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked, his deep voice unexpectedly gentle. She shook her head, tears mingling with rain. "My car broke down. I've been walking for hours. I'm so tired. I just needed somewhere safe." Mike didn't hesitate. He took off his black leather jacket, heavy and warm, and placed it around her shoulders. "You're safe here," he said simply. That moment changed everything. The room, once filled with suspicion, began to move. One man went to get a towel. Another poured her a glass of water. A woman from the back brought out soup and bread. No one questioned her. No one asked what she was doing there or why. They just helped. Sarah sat trembling by the fire, feeling the warmth spread through her body, and through her heart. She had walked into a place the world told her to fear, but what she found was humanity where she least expected it. As she looked up at Mike, she whispered, "Why are you helping me?" He smiled faintly. "Because everyone deserves a safe place when they're hurting. Doesn't matter who they are." And that night, inside a rough biker bar, kindness shone brighter than the neon lights. It was unexpected, unpolished, and real, the kind of compassion that doesn't come from wealth or status, but from a heart that remembers pain and chooses to heal others anyway. Sarah sat near the dimly lit corner of the bar, her trembling hands wrapped around a mug of warm tea. Steam rose slowly, curling like smoke in the air, yet her fingers still shook from the cold, and from fear. The noise of laughter and clinking bottles had faded, replaced by the soft hum of the rain outside. For the first time in months, she felt safe, but the silence in her heart screamed louder than any storm. Mike, the biker who had given her his jacket, sat across the table. His presence was calm but heavy, like someone who had seen too much of the world and carried its weight quietly. He didn't push her to talk, just watched her with quiet understanding. Finally, her voice broke through the stillness. "I didn't know where else to go." Tears began to slip down her cheeks, one by one. She wiped them away quickly, ashamed, as if crying was something she wasn't allowed to do. But Mike just nodded, saying softly, "You're safe now. Take your time." And she did. For the first time in what felt like forever, she let the words pour out, haltingly, painfully, but honestly. "I used to think love meant staying, no matter how much it hurt." Her voice cracked. "But when he started hitting me, when he said he didn't want our baby, I knew if I stayed, neither of us would make it. The room was quiet. Even the other bikers who pretended not to listen were frozen, eyes lowered, fists clenched beneath the table. They had seen violence, but hearing it through her trembling voice hit differently. I left in the middle of the night, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I packed a small bag, grabbed what little money I had, and drove until the gas ran out. I thought, maybe I could reach a shelter, or a church, or anyone who would take me in. But when my car died, I just kept walking. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, feeling a small kick beneath her palm. She smiled through tears. He's been my reason to keep going. Every step, every breath, it's for him. A rough voice from the corner suddenly spoke. You did the right thing. It was one of the younger bikers, his eyes glistening in the dim light. No one deserves to live in fear. Sarah looked up, surprised. She had expected judgment, pity, maybe even disbelief, but all she saw were faces softened by empathy. Mike leaned forward, his tone low but full of conviction. You're not alone anymore. Whatever you ran from, it won't find you here. We'll make sure of it. And in that moment, something inside her broke, not from pain, but from relief. The kind of relief that comes when you've been fighting too long, when you realize you're finally surrounded by people who see your scars and still call you human. She closed her eyes, whispering, "Thank you." The words were small, fragile, almost lost in the noise of the rain. But for the bikers gathered there, those two words carried more power than any roar of engines. A woman who had lost faith in kindness had found it in the most unexpected place. And as the night grew quieter, her cry for help turned into something else, hope. The rain had stopped by morning, but the smell of it still lingered in the air, wet earth, oil, and the faint scent of coffee brewing somewhere in the back. The old biker bar looked different in the daylight, softer, almost peaceful. The chaos of the night before had given way to quiet stillness. Sarah sat on a worn leather couch, holding a small cup of tea between her hands. The jacket Mike had given her was still draped around her shoulders, its weight oddly comforting. Across the room, a few of the bikers were talking in low voices, glancing her way now and then, their gruff faces hiding emotions they weren't used to showing. Mike walked in, wiping his hands with a rag. His heavy boots thudded softly against the wooden floor. "Doctor said you and the baby are doing fine," he said, offering a faint smile. "You're stronger than you look." Sarah's eyes welled with tears again, though this time, they weren't from fear, they were from gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," she said quietly. Mike shrugged. "You don't have to. Around here, we take care of our own." The word own echoed in her heart. No one had ever said that to her before. For years, she had been isolated, silenced, made to feel like she didn't belong anywhere. But these men, these rough, tattooed strangers who the world judged as heartless, had given her a place to rest, food to eat, and something far more precious, dignity. As the morning light filtered through the dusty windows, one of the bikers, Jake, approached with a small box in his hands. "It ain't much," he said, placing it on the table. Inside were baby clothes, a soft blanket, and a tiny stuffed bear. "My sister's kid outgrew them. Figured you could use these." Sarah covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. "You did all this, for me?" Jake chuckled awkwardly, scratching his beard. "For him," he said, nodding toward her belly. "Every new life deserves a fighting chance." And just like that, something invisible bound them together, not blood, not history, but compassion. A silent oath passed between them all that morning. Later, when Sarah's abusive husband showed up in town looking for her, he didn't get far. The bikers stood together, a wall of leather and steel between him and the woman he had broken. He never even made it to the bar door. When the sheriff arrived, it was Mike who handed the man over, his voice calm but steady. "She's under our protection now," he said simply. That night, the group sat around the fire pit behind the bar. The stars were out, the air cool and gentle. Sarah held her belly, smiling faintly as the baby kicked. The bikers laughed softly, telling stories of their own broken pasts, of mistakes and second chances. "Guess we're not such bad guys after all," one of them joked. Mike looked over at Sarah, then at his brothers. "Nah," he said. "We just needed someone to remind us who we really are." Sarah looked around the circle, the flicker of flames reflecting in their eyes, the warmth of shared silence, and for the first time in years, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Home. And in that rough bar full of bikers and scars, a woman who came in broken had helped a room full of men remember that even the hardest hearts can still beat with kindness. Because sometimes, family isn't the one you're born into, it's the one that finds you when you have nowhere else to go.